Hello and welcome back to my channel. A massive thanks to AIN who tagged me in this work in publishing tag. She started it up as for publishing hopefuls to find out how people got into publishing and what their lives are like in publishing. If you don't know who I am, hi, I'm Eleanor. I have a YouTube channel where I talk all things book publishing industry. So I have interviews with publishing professionals, I have day in the lives, I have book reviews, I have general knowledge of the industry. So please consider subscribing, turning the bell notification on, etc, etc. But for this video I'm going to be answering the questions that AIN came up with for the work in publishing tag. So let's get straight into it. So first question is, what was your first publishing job? My first publishing job was as a publishing apprentice at Bloomsbury Publishing in the UK. I got that through a company called, or an agency called LDN Apprenticeships, and I was employed as a production assistant alongside doing the apprenticeship side of things, so learning and helping out in other departments such as the marketing and publicity departments. From there I then was, after 15 months, I was kept on as a permanent employee as a production assistant at Bloomsbury. What is your current publishing job? My current role is a marketing and PR assistant at Bonnier Books UK Children's Division. I have been in this role for just about 2 months now, so I'm still very fresh to the industry, fresh to the role. As I mentioned, my first job was an apprenticeship, which meant that I had sort of 10 months in the marketing and publicity department doing a lot of the kind of admin, intern assistant roles, which helped me get the job that I'm currently in. Massively enjoying it, much more me. I did love my job in production, but marketing and PR is definitely more of a me thing. I like doing social media stuff, I like talking to people, I like shouting about the books, etc. So that is my current job. I've also got a day in the life posted coming, depending on when I'm going to put this video out, so check that out to see what I do on a kind of day-to-day basis at the moment. What are your favourite / least favourite things about working in the publishing industry? Also, this is the first time I've just screenshot the questions, this is the first time I'm actually seeing them. So that's a good question. Favourite thing about working in the publishing industry? Maybe that it's a very collaborative industry in that, so I work in marketing and PR, as I said, so I work with editorial when they're telling us about the new acquisitions, you work with booksellers, you work with book bloggers. It's just a very people-focused industry. Another good thing is also the free books, which is fab. Yeah, I'm gonna go with how kind of collaborative it is. It's a very people-facing industry. Least favourite thing about working in the publishing industry, then maybe that the kind of industry that it is, it's old-fashioned and it is quick-paced in the fact that someone will die and their autobiography is published like the next month. We try and publish very quick on what's happening in the world, but in terms of the way that the business runs and the industry runs, it's old-fashioned and there are still a lot of things that need changing. Most specifically, the diversity in publishing. A lot of, including myself, a lot of the employees in publishing are white women, basically. Depending on the kind of like seniority level that you're at as well, that is not fantastic. Yeah, employees, there need to be more diverse employees in terms of disability, in terms of race, everything. And also the books that we publish and the authors that we work with as well, we can't just keep having the same kind of authors. That's not helping anyone, that's not helping children, especially the department that I work in. And yeah, the representation of the kind of people in the books as well. You rarely see main characters in books that are in a wheelchair that have got some kind of speech impairment, anything like that, and if they do, it's like a whole book about that rather than just being a natural part of the characters, if that makes sense. I hate when the whole focus is like, this book is about this, which is great, but it's like, okay, stop making it a big thing, let's make it more of a natural thing. Let's just make, you know, the best friend in the fictional book have some kind of disability or is a person of colour, like, yeah, that's a whole other topic, and I'm still doing research into that, so if you do want to kind of like hear about some of my research, then stick around on my channel. Next question is, have your reading habits changed since you started working in the publishing industry? This is really interesting because when I went for my group interview at Bloomsbury Publishing, I asked this exact question to them when we were kind of just like having a mooch around, when we weren't actually being interviewed. I asked one of the senior members of the Bloomsbury UK branch exactly that, like, have you been reading more since you joined the industry or less? And I feel like her answer was like, oh, it started to be more and now it's less. For me, 1000%, I have read more since joining the publishing industry. I joined the publishing industry as a hoax. I was like, yeah, I love books, which I do, but I was not reading anywhere near as much as I am now, and I'm still not a particularly fast reader. I don't read a lot of books each month. I kind of average like 4 or 5 books a month, which to a non-reader perhaps is a lot. To people that work in in publishing, they're thinking, Eleanor, why have you not read anything this month? So yeah, 100% I've read more than I used to since joining the publishing industry for various reasons. Number one, that you are kind of just surrounded by books all the time. People are talking about it all the time, and in order to feel involved and kind of validated being in the industry, you kind of need to be reading and on top of what's going on. And second of all, obviously you're working on them, so especially for me in marketing and PR, how can I possibly market or publicise a book without knowing what it's about, without having read it, and can comment on the characters and the writing style, etc. So yeah, definitely am reading more now that I've joined the publishing industry, which I think is a bonus, and I think that starting my YouTube as well has allowed me to kind of encourage non-readers to read more as well. Like family and friends point out that I do videos on the publishing industry and books and stuff, and they're like, oh, actually maybe I should give it a go, and it's like, yeah, maybe you should. Next question, can you share your top resources for anyone wanting to break into the industry? Yes, I've recently posted a video on this, so rather than listing them all now, I'm going to direct you, and I'll put it in the link in the description down below as well. I've done a whole video on what I think are the best resources if you want to work in publishing. Myself and my own channel obviously being the first one that I recommend, but there are other people out there that are doing amazing things, companies, etc. There is a lot out there. Sometimes it's just kind of, you need to find it, or you need to be pointed in the right direction, which I hope that video does. So after watching this one, please do check out the different resources that are out there. What is one publishing department you would like to work in for a day? I love this question. I did watch AIN'S video. Technically this isn't the first time I'm hearing these questions because I watched AIN'S answers to this, but I love that question. For a day, potentially rights, just because that's definitely not for me as a full-time thing. I wouldn't want to work in rights just for various reasons, but it would be really interesting for a day because I know like what they do, but I don't know on a day-to-day basis what their emails would look like or what kind of deals they'll be making, etc. And I think that'll be really interesting just to, you know, there's only so much you can learn when you're listening and you're watching these videos and people are telling you about their role without having that actual exposure to it directly. So potentially rights, I can kind of get, or editorial, I've kind of been exposed to some editorial work, production I've done, marketing and PR I'm doing. I mean, there's so many out there. Sales, potentially, I don't think that's for me though, so I'm gonna say rights. I do love that question though. If you could change one thing about the publishing industry, what would that be? I kind of touched on this earlier, but definitely the kind of, I don't even know what you call it, attitude towards diversity in publishing. Pay maybe, the salaries. It's not a secret, and I hope I don't get fired for saying this, but the pay is like atrocious compared to some other industries. Publishing relies heavily on the fact that people love what they're doing and they do their job out of passion rather than out of needing money. I think that a lot of people can't survive on their own unless they have a partner, which is such a shame, and I think that it needs to change because there are people in this industry that are working so hard, that are putting their all into it every day, as well as doing things outside of work. Like I know someone that I used to work with would be working extra job just to in order to cover their travel costs coming up to the office, etc. So like it is a bit ridiculous, and I don't really understand. I'm not very good at the financial side of businesses, but I don't really understand why that is still the case. Why is it not changed? Why is it still so bad? Entry-level jobs especially, and the fact that there's such a gap between, like, you get like an assistant job, an exec, a manager, and then all of a sudden there's this massive gap before you get to the next one, and there's just like, how do you justify having like a 30 grand pay rise when the pay rise before was like 2 grand or something? I mean, I'm plucking these figures out of thin air, but you get what I mean. So going back to the question, what would you change? 2 things: the diversity attitude to publishing, and secondly, the salary in publishing. I'm getting through this really quickly. Can you share your top 3 tips to stand out from the crowd when applying for publishing jobs? Stand out, I feel like everyone wants to know this answer, and it's like, again, I have done different videos on tips to get into publishing. I've done a video as well on why publishing is so competitive, and one of the things I mentioned on there is that, yeah, everyone just wants to stand out because there are minimal jobs available. So to stand out, I would say do something extra. As frustrating and as exhausting as it is, do something extra. Have a bookstagram, have a blog, and be volunteering somewhere, write some articles to practice your journalism skills, whatever it is. Do something extra that you can shout about on your CV, in your cover letter, in interviews, etc. That would be my one thing, and that's definitely helped me. So top 3, just stand out from the crowd. Top 3, be different. How do you say that? Be different. Like, don't be afraid to change your cover letter to be different. The publicity manager, the fabulous publicity manager that I work with now, she did an interview for my channel when she was a press officer at Bonnier Books UK, and she said that her cover letter she designed as like kind of like kids books on why, or was it a CV? Kids books on why she would be like the perfect candidate for this role, amazing for a publicity job. I'll link that interview down below as well. So yeah, kind of like just be different, don't be afraid to take risks. At the end of the day, you might get rejected. Oh well, you might have got rejected if you had like a boring cover letter, so try and just be a bit more exciting. Big yourself up, obviously that is what it's there for. Obviously do not lie, but big yourself up and genuinely say like, I've done all this work, this is what I think you need to recognise, I've done a fab job. And thirdly, oh my god, this is so hard, stand out from the crowd. I feel like that's such a specific thing. Like I can tell you loads of things to get into publishing, you know, like keeping up to date with what's going on, but to stand out, a third tip, I should have really thought about this before, or I should have rewatched AIN'S video to see what she said. I'm gonna leave it at 2 just because I don't want to just say something that obviously doesn't have much relevance because it's not coming to my head immediately, but there we go. Have you ever been rejected for a publishing job you loved? Yes. Before I was made a permanent employee at Bloomsbury, as I said, I was an apprentice as a production assistant. It wasn't confirmed that I was going to be kept on, so I interviewed for a production assistant role at Bloomsbury, but just in a different division. So I interviewed for the children's division rather than the academic division, which I was working in before. I was like, yes, I love this job, I'm in this job now, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I didn't get it. Sad. Secondly, I really wanted was it marketing assistant or PR assistant or marketing and PR assistant? Again at Bloomsbury. As I said, I kind of had that exposure when I was doing the apprenticeship as well. I was like, yes, I love this is what I want to do. I love working at Bloomsbury. I didn't want to leave Bloomsbury, and yeah, and I didn't get it, and I was like, this is so sad because that was the perfect job. I put my all into that, like I wanted that so badly, and I know how shit it can feel, and I feel like I'm saying this like I got rejected for 2 jobs. It's not a ridiculous amount. Like some people will literally get through like 40-50 rejections and it won't say anything about them, they'll be fab, it's just they're unlucky. So I know how shit it feels, so if you have been rejected, please don't feel like alone, please don't feel disheartened. I feel like everyone says that, but it's true. I've not had very original answers to this, I'm afraid, but there we go. Can you share any tips for anyone dealing with this? Oh yeah, okay, so don't be disheartened. I took it so personally, and that's the kind of character that I am as well. I'm very sensitive, so I was literally crying. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Don't, just literally write it down if you have to, send yourself an email and literally be like, don't take this personally, this doesn't reflect on you, you're probably fab, your CV was probably fab, your cover letter was probably fab, your interview was probably fab, someone might have had more experience, someone might have had a better day on that day than you. You never know why it is. They'll give you feedback on the off occasion, which is very useful to bear in mind, but do not take it to heart. And kind of linking on to that, learn from any feedback they give you as well, learn from advice that people give you online. If you want any questions, I will put my email down below as well, so if you want to ask for any advice, etc. And last one, what advice would you give to anyone trying to get into publishing from a different industry? So you've been working somewhere else and you want to get into this one, just prove that you've got the skills, I think would be the main one. I've done another video on the skills that you need to work in publishing. Publishing, especially entry-level roles, rely not on degrees anymore, they rely on your skills, communication, teamwork, independence, like organisation, like all that kind of jazz. So just brush up on them and prove that in your interview as well, and be like, yeah, I managed this, which shows I can manage a team, yeah, I did this, which shows I can work spreadsheets. It's kind of basic, but brush up on those skills and prove it as well. Don't just be like, yeah, I'm really hardworking. Well, how are you hardworking? What have you done? What results can you show me that prove that? So I always say that, brush up on your skills and learn how to prove that as well. Give examples so that you can be specific and stand out. And from another industry, just be aware of this industry, sign up to the bookseller, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, etc. Subscribe to any newsletters you can, get involved with the publishing post, just know what's happening in this industry. Poor employers might be scared to think that you know exactly what you're doing in that other industry, and you come in and you don't know what publishing is. Come in and be like, yes, I subscribe to the bookseller, yes, I know what acquisition was made this week, yes, I know what kind of books you publish at your publishing house. Know your shit when you go in, basically. Yeah, that's what I'd say, coming in from a different industry. Also, it's not unheard of, like don't feel like you're the only one that's done that. I've already met so many people that used to work in like science or finance and have now come into this industry, or like film as well. Someone that I used to work with, she came from the film industry. They are all of the questions for the work in publishing tag that AIN very helpfully set up for publishing hopefuls. So I hope this was somewhat useful. If it was, let me know in the comment section down below, share this on Twitter, etc. That would mean the world to me. If you do have any questions, as I said, please feel free to email me, get in touch, or all my social medias. I would really appreciate it if you would consider tapping the bell notification so you get notified every time I post a new video that's relating to the publishing industry. Oh, I feel like I talk so fast these days. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you in my next one. Bye.